All right, welcome everyone to another Thursday. We have 2 minutes to 12, so I'm gonna let you guys get comfortable. Bring on your notepads or a Word doc, because we have a lot of interesting information today. It's good to be prepared. If everyone here can hear and see me, just drop a 1 in the chat for me, just to make sure we're good to go. Awesome, perfect. Thank you, Manuel. Thank you, Veronica. Thank you, everyone, for confirming. All right, so it is 12 p.m. and looks like some more people are joining in. But I think we could get started here. All right, so welcome everyone to another NJ Drives Thursday. So this is a weekly webinar series for New Jersey small business owners. I am your host, Christian Pichardo, NJSBDC marketing consultant and CEO at NilumaMedia.com. So we are America's and New Jersey Small Business Development Centers network. We're basically a statewide program that's powered by the SBA and state partners to help small businesses in New Jersey with no-cost small business consulting, training and events starting at $0, just like this one, and exclusive small business resources that are only available to SBDC clients. So for today's agenda, we're going to go over some headlines, the webinar, and at the end, as always, the Q&A. So to start, this week, there wasn't much stuff. So yesterday, the 30th, June 30th, is where some grants hit the deadline of when you could submit an application. So we're starting a new month. There's probably new things that will come up later during the month. But for now, I wanted to share this with everyone. If you have a venue business, you do concerts, you do things outdoors, could be indoors also. This grant is still available by the SBA, the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. We're going to put the link in the chat so you can get more information about that. But this is basically here for you to read. And also, not so much small business related, but I thought this was something everyone should pay attention to, the child tax credit. So I'm just sharing stuff that gives you guys some money, right? So this is obviously helpful for a lot of families out there, and you help your family, it'll somehow indirectly affect your business as well. So I thought it was good to share this also. Again, we're going to drop the link to this into the chat. So those are the two headlines. Now, 3 things to keep in mind before we start. Type in your questions into the Q&A box. 2, there's going to be a 3-minute survey at the end of the webinar. Please fill that out. And once you fill that out, you're going to get access to the event materials, the presentation, and a link to the on-demand webinar that's available usually between 24 and 48 hours after this live session. And 3, just by attending this event makes you eligible for the Upgrade Your Business certificate. So for more information on that, go ahead and visit that link. Again, it's going to be in the chat. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome Tim Peter, founder and president at Tim Peter and Associates, and moderator Margaret O'Donnell with best practices to compete online. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing great, Christian. Thanks so much for having me today.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and the show's yours.
Fantastic. Just give me 1 second to get started here. And welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for taking the time today. I genuinely appreciate it. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. I think we're going to have a lot to talk about. And as Christian mentioned, Margaret O'Donnell, who's the manager of military and veteran engagement programs at Rutgers Business School Exec Ed, is here as my able counterpart and moderator for today's event. So thanks so much, Margaret, for being here as well. So first and foremost, I am a small business owner. So I live in the same world that you do. I am a consultant. I have my own consulting firm. We've been around for a decade. And it is pretty clear that over the last year, we've all lived through some stuff. This has not been a normal year. But what we're finding is how you can use online, how you can use digital to compete and get your fair share of business, or maybe even better than your fair share. But what I find is true when we talk about digital, when we talk about the internet, is that there's a lot out there, and it is so hard to keep up with all of the different pieces. And so I think sometimes what we really want to do is we want to break it down to the simplest possible moments. And instead of thinking of all of the things that you could do on the internet, maybe we should just talk about what happens on the internet in just 1 minute. So this is what happens every minute of the day on the internet. In a single minute, there are over 3 million search queries conducted on Google every minute of every day. There are over 204 million emails sent every minute of every day, which you don't need me to tell you this. You can just look in your inbox and you'll see them, right? And there's a ton coming in there. There are over 26,000 reviews written on sites like TripAdvisor and Yelp every minute of the day. There are over 300 hours of video uploaded to YouTube every minute of the day. There are over 450,000 tweets sent, and there are over 208,000 photos uploaded to Facebook every single minute. Now, if you think about that, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, one of these days, I think they're all going to merge into one giant social network called UTwitface. And obviously, that is a lot to keep up with, even in just a single minute. And so we want to talk about how do we break this down? How do we make this as simple as possible and focus on the areas where you can have the greatest benefit? Now, I always like to start with a very simple way of thinking about where our business comes from online. And this is something many of you have probably seen before, but I always think it's worth revisiting, which is what I always think of as the online revenue formula, or the e-commerce revenue formula, which is very simple. It's V times CR times CLV equals revenue, which means the number of visitors you get to your site times their conversion rate times the lifetime value of that customer equals revenue for your business. Now, when we're talking about e-commerce or online, this doesn't mean that the conversion has to happen online. If you're a consulting firm, if you're a restaurant, if you are a doctor's office, a dentist's office, an auto body repair shop, the conversion happens when the customer comes into your store. That's okay. But we need to have a good feel for how do we actually drive those people to do the things we want them to do. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how do you get more visitors, how do you improve the conversion, how do you improve customer lifetime value so that ultimately you get more revenue. Now in practice, let's just look at what this looks like, really quickly. You can have a scenario where you have 1,000 visitors to your web presence. For some of you, that could be the traffic you get in a day. For some of you, that could be the traffic you get in a month. For some of you, that could be the traffic you get in a quarter. That's okay. That's okay. I'm just trying to put this at a baseline so we're all thinking about this the same way. So you get 1,000 visitors to your web presence. You convert 5% of those folks to sales. The average sale that they do, or the number of sales that they do, total $100. That means that they equal $5,000 in top line revenue to you. So how do you improve that? Well, first, you can go ahead and you can improve the number of visitors that you get. Go from 1,000 visitors to 2,000 visitors, you've gone from $5,000 in revenue to $10,000 in revenue. Really straightforward. If you increase the conversion rate, so instead of 5%, you convert 10%, you go from $5,000 to $10,000. If you increase the lifetime value, so instead of spending $100, they spend $200, you go from $5,000 to $10,000 in whatever period. And of course, if you can do all of those, double your visitors, double your conversion rate, double your lifetime value, you go from $5,000 to $40,000. So the opportunity exists to do this, to drive your business forward and improve overall revenue for your business. And the idea is you don't necessarily just want to do one of these. You want to try to do all of them. But you can start by just focusing on only one and then build on it. How do you improve each one every single day, every single week, every single month, every single quarter, every single year? So right now you're probably saying, this is great. How do I do that? Well, it all starts with the kinds of relationships we have with our customers. And I'm sure for many of us, our relationships can be somewhat transactional. It can be something where we try to give them a little value, we try to get a little value, and that's all there is, right? So the customer relationship looks a little bit like Tinder, right? We're simply there to see who we can swipe right on right now, and then move on to the next person, and then move on to the next person, and then move on to the next person. And instead, what I would encourage you to do, what I would encourage you to think about in terms of how you use digital, is to move from a relationship that's less like Tinder and more like a Hallmark movie. We're looking for the fairy tale romance. We're looking for how do we build deep, meaningful, lasting relationships with our customers so that they become not just our customers, but they become advocates for our brands and our businesses as well. So how do we do that? Well, every fairy tale romance requires three things. It requires a king, it requires a queen, and it requires the crown jewels. And so this is what we're going to talk about for the rest of today. We're going to talk about the king, the queen, and the crown jewels. Before I get started, are there any questions about anything I've talked about so far?
No questions have come into the Q&A yet, but this is a great opportunity to remind our audience to go to the Q&A across the bottom of their screen to submit questions. I'll also try to monitor the chat, but that does roll and it's a little harder to keep up with the questions there. So if our audience could use the Q&A at the bottom, that would be great.
Perfect. So let's start with the king, right? The king is content. Content is, was, and always shall be king. Customers have lots of questions. They are constantly looking for the answers to questions that they have. We know that for many purchases, customers are 60 to 70% of the way to a purchase decision before they ever talk to a salesperson at your company, regardless of the kind of business you're in. Obviously, if you do e-commerce, if you sell your product online and directly, then 100% of that happens online. But even in a business that you think of as being fairly high touch, or you think of as being something that they can only experience when they come into your store, or they come into your shop, or they come into your office, they still are doing an immense amount of research up front so that they know the answers to the questions that are important to them before they ever have to pick up the phone or fill out a form or walk into your store. Customers would rather be armed with all the information that they need. It is also increasingly true that you all have one of these, one of these little mobile devices we carry around in our pocket, right, with the internet attached to it. Did we lose audio? Can everyone hear me?
We can hear, and as a matter of fact, we finally have a few of the questions coming on in.
Okay, perfect. All right, great. So it may surprise some of you, but this device right here, this makes phone calls too. And the reason I'd say that might surprise you is because increasingly customers don't do that. They want to find the answers before they ever talk to someone. They're looking for content that answers questions, and those questions signal their intent. Now, The great thing about this is Google is also looking for content that answers those questions, that answers questions around the questions that your customers have. And we know that Google ranks websites that actually answer questions. But there's a myth of search. There is a myth about Google. Google does not rank web sites. Google ranks web pages, or as it says here on the slide, more specifically, a page. Google wants to provide the one true answer to a searcher's query. You've all seen the I'm feeling lucky button on Google for years and years and years and years. What that does is that goes to the page that Google thinks is the best answer to a question. And if you think of voice search, where people now use Siri, or they use Alexa, or they use Google Assistant to answer questions with their voice, which now comprises about 20% of all searches on mobile, often the only answer to the question is one page. So you need to be thinking about, how does each page answer the questions that my customer has about one specific part of my service, or one specific product, or one specific set of features that answer the questions the customers have, and that they're, signal their intent. So what do they search for? What do they care about? Well, they care about something that we refer to as EAT, E-A-T. So what is EAT? What is EAT? EAT is expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. Customers and Google are looking for pages that demonstrate expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. So what do we mean by that? We mean that you actually do demonstrate that you have expertise on this. So content shouldn't be short. It shouldn't be, if you think 100 words answers a question and is going to demonstrate expertise, that's probably not the case. You need to think about creating content that is sufficiently detailed. Doesn't mean it has to be super long. It just means it has to be sufficiently detailed that it's going to be a good answer to the question. Are you answering the question effectively? You want to demonstrate authority, meaning if you are the expert on a particular topic, on the thing that you provide to your customers, on the service that you provide to your customers, the best page is not a page that talks about 12 things. It's a page that talks about one thing. Now, there might be a variety of keywords about that one thing, but it talks about one very specific thing. So if you are a vegan restaurant in Morristown, New Jersey, your page should talk about your vegan menu and why you focus on vegan food, and why you focus on, a healthy vegan diet or lifestyle, right? If you're an auto body shop, you should talk about your experience with specific types of cars. And you might say, here's the work we do on cars, and here's the work we do on trucks, because those might be different kinds of questions that people have. So you want to demonstrate authority. But if you talk about 12 different things on the same page, or 12 different things on your site, it's going to be very hard to be seen as an authority on any one of them, because it's very unlikely that any one person knows a lot about a lot. Demonstrate your authority, demonstrate your expertise by focusing on the content that is most relevant to your customers and most relevant to your business. And of course, trustworthiness, you have to have a good track record. You have to get links from quality people, from quality websites. You have to build content over a longer period instead of just putting up a page and leaving it alone for 5 years. If the last time you've updated your content is 4 or 5 years ago, you're going to want to take a look at that, because if you ask a question today about, how people stay safe or stay healthy, is that going to be trustworthy if it's from pre-pandemic? Probably not. So you need to be thinking about, are we demonstrating this trust in the content that we create? One thing I do want to point out is that Google is very careful around what they call your money or your life pages. So things related to health, financial stability, safety, wellness, those are things that Google is going to be particularly focused on making sure that you have to demonstrate high level of expertise, high level of authority, high level of trustworthiness for that page to show up in the search results and be something that customers want to read. Any questions about that before we move on?
Timar, one question that came
Yeah.
in does go back to a slide or two ago when you were talking about the different social media platforms. And our participant asks, you didn't mention LinkedIn, and is there a reason for that?
There is no reason for that other than LinkedIn doesn't publish as much information about how much content is published on LinkedIn. So it was tougher for me to come up with how much is there in a minute. LinkedIn is an enormously valuable social media channel, especially for two purposes. One is, of course, any kind of B2B selling. I want to point out my business specifically is in B2B. I focus a lot on B2B. So LinkedIn is an incredibly important part of my personal business's strategy. The other thing that it's hugely valuable for is recruitment. If you're looking to hire people, if you're looking to find people to work for you, LinkedIn is incredibly valuable for that as well. And LinkedIn is a huge part of your recruitment strategy, or should be a huge part of your recruitment strategy, and a huge part of how you attract talent to your business. So LinkedIn is a great social network, phenomenal. I highly recommend it. It is obviously going to be more focused on the B2B side or on the talent acquisition side. Okay.
Great, thank you.
All right. By the way, that was a perfect transition because obviously we've been talking about search, and without content, search doesn't work. But without content, social doesn't work either, because one of the keys to making social work is getting your customers to share your content, getting them to share it with their friends and family and fans and followers. So we need to talk about why people share. What kinds of content do people share? And the easiest way to think about it, I find, is if you break it down into three categories. Your content must be snackable, it must be shareable, and it must be sharp. Now, what do I mean by those? Snackable means that it has to be something that they can consume easily. That may sound contradictory in what I said a moment ago about you might want longer pages that have plenty of content on it, which is true, but you can't just have a wall of text with nothing breaking it up. Think about having headlines throughout, different levels of headlines that show the outline of the content. Think about bulleted lists. Think about making it something that people can consume when they're sitting on their phone in their car, picking up their kids from soccer practice. You know, is this something I can get a quick answer to my question and then move on and then come back later when I need to get the next answer? So you want to make the content very easy for people to consume and very easy for people to digest. They will read more. Don't worry if there's more there, but make sure it's something that they can see in a very easily snackable format. Now, shareable means two things. It means one, it's got to be worth sharing, right? People share things that inspire emotion. They look for, think emojis, right? There's LOL, there's OMG, there's WTF, right? People share things that inspire some emotion, and people want to share things that make them look good, that make them look smart, that make them look funny. So don't think just about how do I get them to share, but think about why would they care to share? What about this content inspires them? Whether you're doing it as a business-to-business piece on LinkedIn, or whether you're doing it as a business-to-consumer piece on Facebook or Instagram, what's going to engage them and drive them to share? The second part of shareable is the mechanics of it have to work. What I mean by that is, do you have a share button on your page? Do you make it easy for people to click and share a specific thing? Does the headline fit in a tweet if somebody wants to tweet that to their friends? If it's an image, can it be shared easily on Instagram or Pinterest or on LinkedIn if you're a B2B seller? Think about those kinds of things to make it simple for people to share the content with the people that they need to engage with. A big one that you might want to look at, especially in B2B, is can the page be emailed easily to other folks that they're working with? Make it easy for people to share. And of course, sharp means get to the point. When you think sharp, think point. Am I actually making it clear what I'm saying to them? I cannot tell you how many times I see web pages or how many times I see websites where people talk about, we provide a variety of solutions to address the needs of a diverse customer base, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, great, what do you do? What is it that you actually offer? I am a consultant to the hospitality and technology industry and help them drive revenues at a lower cost. Make it very clear, make it very sharp, get to the point. That's what you want to think about there.
Tim, we had a question
Yeah, please.
asking to go into a little bit more detail about what a share button means when you said to have one on your website.
Sure, perfect. I will show an example of that in just a moment, Margaret. It's a great question. Just bear with me and I will make sure we come back to it. Okay. Now, the best form of shareable content is images. Images sell. There's an old truism when we talk about online, which is pretty pictures sell product. Now, obviously, I'm showing something here where somebody is being an interior design for bathrooms and the like, but you can see it for all kinds of businesses. So we have here, stores showing their product. We have Pinterest showing fashion. We have a business to business. BDI is a development organization for employee training that's using visuals to show people learning about the product or learning about the service. We've got Guitar Center showing this. We've got Just Jersey showing the products that they sell on Facebook. So it's this idea of how do you do this in a way that actually demonstrates what the product is about and makes it very clear and makes it very shareable. I see we have a question about a good and bad website, or can we provide a website to take it apart or show us some improvement needed? I tell you what, when we come to the end, I'll be happy to answer that question. If you have a website you'd like me to take a look at, I will be more than happy to provide some feedback on that. I will show a couple of examples as we get deeper in, but I think it might be more beneficial if we actually look at one live. So yeah, let's do that in a moment. Now, that's content. Content is king. But of course, content on its own doesn't do the job. You also have to provide your customers the right experience. And that's why customer experience is queen. Customer experience means we can see research shows that customers have higher expectations than in the past. They're more likely to share positive and negative experiences with their friends and family and fans and followers. And as I mentioned a moment ago, we know they're 70% of the way to a purchase decision before they ever pick up the phone and call you. They are better, they're smarter and better informed than they ever have been. Why is that? Because every single one of your customers is carrying the internet in their pocket. They have all the answers at their fingertips, and they also have a complete broadcast studio. They have a complete photography studio. They have a complete printing press right there in their hands. They can send messages out on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter saying, oh my gosh, I just had the best experience with this business, or I just had the worst experience with this business. And by the way, that's what people share. They share the really good, they share the really bad. How often do you see people share something with the, emoji next to it that's like, meh? It just doesn't happen. People don't share meh experiences. They share the very good or the very bad. And if you're one of those, they're going to share that with their friends and family and fans and followers. Obviously, you want them to share the very good. So one thing that you've probably heard about social, and one thing that you've probably heard about when people share, is this idea of influencer marketing, right? That's probably something you've heard about, where we find people who have a broad audience to share on our behalf. And we want them to tell our story, which is great. And I'm going to show you in a minute how you do this. But you're looking to find persuasive voices. You want to get them to sing your song, to tell your story on your behalf. But this is the key point. It is not the size of the network of the influencer that matters. It's who's in the audience. You actually don't care about the influencer. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I simply mean you're looking for, does their audience match the people you want to talk to? And especially, do the people that they talk to listen to the influencer about that specific topic? Okay, so for instance, Kim Kardashian is one of the biggest influencers on the internet. But if she were to talk about business consulting, how many people do you think would actually take action about that? Probably very few, because she's not seen as being an influencer in that area. But if you can find somebody who really knows that topic, or really knows the topic that matters to you, again, if you're a dentist, if you're an auto body repair shop, if you're a restaurant, a local restaurant, what are those things that matter, right? Now, you already have a great list of influencers available to you, and they are your customers. They are your best influencers. Your existing customers are your secret sales force. Customer reviews and testimonials tell a powerful story about your business and your brand, and they're going to tell people anyway. So why not get them to tell a really positive story? So this is just a quick little bit of math. Let's say that you get one customer per day for 5 days out of the week for 52 weeks. Obviously, this is going to vary by the type of business you are and the size of business you are, how many people this is going to be. But hang with me for a sec, right? So that's 260 people who are customers of your business in a given year. The average person on Facebook has about 200 friends on Facebook. The numbers are very similar on LinkedIn. They are very similar on Twitter. They are very similar on Instagram. But we're going to just focus on Facebook for the moment because everybody has Facebook, right? So there's about 200 Facebook friends per customer. That means that there's a potential audience for any message that they send about your business of 52,000 people. Now, let's say that only 1% of these folks actually share. That still means you have a potential audience of 520 folks. And if you convert 5% of those, that's 26 additional customers, or a 10% increase in sales per year, just because a customer told a positive story on your behalf. Reaching that number of people, 500 people or 52,000 people on Facebook, costs you money. Reaching that number of people on LinkedIn can cost you money. But if you can get a customer to do it on your behalf for free, you're driving down the cost of creating new customers and improving your overall results. That's why customer experience is queen. You want them to tell a positive brand story about you. Questions?
Oh, sorry, I wasn't clicked that unmute button a couple of times. It wasn't taking at first. So we have several responses to your request or your statement that you would take a look at some websites at the end.
Perfect. Perfect. We'll come back to those in just a minute then.
Yeah.
All right. In that case, I'm going to move on. So if content is king and customer experience is queen, then data is the crown jewels. One of the things that is absolutely true is you cannot manage what you can't measure. Your competitors, as well as gatekeepers like Google, Amazon, and Facebook, they know everything about your customers. I want you to think about something for just a second. How many of you use Gmail? You don't have to do anything in the comments, but how many of you use Gmail? How many of you use Chrome as your web browser? How many of you have an Android phone? How many of you use Google Docs? How many of you use Google Voice for a phone number, right? Think about all the different ways that you interact with Google. How many of you use YouTube? How many of you use Google Search? They know everything about you. And it's okay. I'm not here to make them out to be bad guys. Nor Facebook, nor Amazon, nor LinkedIn, nor Apple. They are all doing things to understand customers to create better experiences. But they're using quantitative and qualitative data to understand customer needs, improve the customer experience, and provide content that answers their questions. You want to do the same thing. So here's an example of a restaurant that I have worked, a hotel that I've worked with rather, specifically, where we did a bunch of social media listening, and I'm going to guide you to some tools in a little bit that talk about these. But we looked at what was it that the customers talked about? What was it that the customers said they actually valued about the hotel? And they said they valued the staff, they valued the breakfast, the location. They enjoyed going as a couple. They felt it was a really good place for that. They liked the restaurants. notice the customer is telling us what they liked. And so what we did was we simply updated the website to focus on showing the things that customers told us they actually preferred. So we showed pictures of couples enjoying a glass of wine and talking about romance packages and things along those lines. We showed examples of the staff bringing breakfast to the room, right? Make it very clear that this is something that you already know the customers want, and focus on those things. Now, one of the reasons that this is important, the secret behind every negative review you've ever seen online for any product or service is not that the product or service was terrible. I guarantee you that's the case. It's that the product or service didn't match the expectations that the customer had before they got it. Don't get me wrong, it might have been a bad product, but maybe they expected it to be this level of product and it was this level of product. Obviously, it's going to be much worse if they expected it to be this level of product and it was this level of product. But it's a mismatch between expectations. If we listen to what our customers are telling us, and then we focus on doing those things that we know they like and emphasizing those things that we know they like, the likelihood that we're going to have a mismatch between expectations and experience goes down dramatically. So what did we see in this case? We saw a healthy lift in web traffic. We saw an increase in people sharing information. We saw higher ratings on key social rating and review sites, and a significant increase in revenues and profitability for the customer. Okay. So I noticed we have a couple of questions. Why don't we go ahead and address those before we move on?
Sure. So how does a particular business know which platform is the best for them to use for their business?
Sure. Great question. So we'll look at this a little bit in a moment, but what I would encourage you to do is look at Google Analytics for your website. So first of all, have a website. Let's start there. We talk a lot about the idea of a hub and spoke model when we talk about online, where your website is the hub. It's where everything lives. And then the spokes are the other sources that you use, the other channels you use to drive traffic to your website and put content in front of potential customers. So have a website. Once you have a website, make sure you use Google Analytics to track where traffic is coming to from your business. And you're going to need to test. Now, obviously, if you are a B2C company, meaning you sell to consumers, not businesses, the things you should try to test are the social networks and the various channels that are used more commonly by consumers. So Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, those would be where I would test first and foremost. Snapchat, potentially. It works well in some cases, it doesn't work well in other cases, but can be very effective. If you're a B2B company, meaning you sell to other businesses, you really want to start with LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the place where you really want to start first and foremost. You can absolutely then test, does Facebook work for us? Does Instagram work for us? Does Pinterest work for us? In my experience, very rarely, but it can happen. Pinterest very rarely works for B2B, but it can happen in some cases. Twitter can work if you're trying to get media to cover you. Twitter is a really great place to connect with media. But in Google Analytics, you can see where is my traffic coming from. And then you can double down on the places where you're getting a lot of traffic and continue to test other sources to see if you can drive additional traffic. If it doesn't work, a few times, I would say don't waste your time worrying about that channel and focus your energies on where your traffic's coming from. The only caveat I would put to that is don't put all your eggs in one basket. If 100% of your traffic is coming from Facebook, you're going to set yourself up for trouble if Facebook ever changes the rules of how they drive traffic to you. So you want to make sure you're using a variety of things like search, like various social channels, and using them to complement the hub. The other thing you want to do, the best social network in the world, and I'm going to talk about this in just one more minute, but the best social network in the world is your email list. You want to build an email list so that you're also connecting with customers through a list that you own and control. Okay.
One other quick question, Tim, about Facebook. It has some peculiarities or something around sharing, and our participant is wondering how to get past that.
Yeah, it's a great question. That's actually why your customers are your best influencers. Because if you share content, you have a bunch of people who follow your brand on Facebook. You've created a page on Facebook. People have said, yes, I want to get updates from these. And you share something in a normal day, Facebook is going to allow that to be seen by between 1 and maybe 10% of the people who have said they want to see your content. And it usually skews more towards the lower end of that. So if you have 500 followers on Facebook and you share, you might only be seen by 5 of them, maybe 50 of them if you're really lucky on the first share. When your customers share things, that's actually seen by a much wider percentage of their network, because they're sharing just stuff with their friends, right? This isn't a sales thing. This isn't a business thing. This is, oh my gosh, I went to this restaurant last night and had the best time. It was amazing, right? So you can see how that's going to be seen by more people, because it's not seen as being commercial in intent. The other thing that happens is if you share something and one of your customers reshares it with their friends, that is actually a signal to Facebook to allow the algorithm to show your content to more people. So you go from being seen by, we'll say 5% to maybe 10. And if that gets shared further, it widens it even further and so on. So that's why you want your customers to do the sharing, because it's actually the way to sneak through the hole in the algorithm. Okay. Great question. Other questions?
We do have a couple of other ones. I wasn't sure if you want to take them now or
Sure.
or move along, but should content include things like prices or where prices start or packages?
Yeah, a great question. So I hate giving this answer. It's the answer nobody likes, but it depends. What I would suggest is look and see what your competition is doing, and look and see what kinds of questions your customers are asking about your products in your own site search and in Google search. And I'm going to show you how to do that literally in just a moment. But you want to see if you're getting a lot of questions about prices, there may be some opportunity to create a pricing page, and on that pricing page to show either some prices or to at least say, here's how you can figure out what kind, what ballpark we're in, and here's how you get more information about getting prices. Fill out this form and we'll have someone contact you, or call this number and we can talk about it, or call for a free consultation and we can give you a price at the end of it, or something along those lines. But it really does vary based on the kinds of product or service you offer. If you're selling guitars online or shoes online or clothing online or things like that, of course you have to show the pricing. People expect to be able to see the price for that. If you're selling, if you're a restaurant and you have, people can make a reservation to come into the restaurant or get food delivered, of course they will need to see the prices and know what they should expect when they go in. If you are a dentist or your doctor, or you're a consultant, an accountant, it's okay if you don't show your prices. People don't tend to expect that, but you might want to give them some sense of, here's how you get more information about pricing. Okay.
All right, we still have a couple of questions coming in. Do you want them now, or do you want to hold off?
We'll hold them for just a moment.
Okay.
I just want to take you through a couple of ideas here in terms of how you get some of the data that you need here. So there are a variety of social media, social listening tools that exist out there to help you listen and see what people are talking about. So when I showed you this, we literally pulled this from things people said on social media. You can do the same using these various tools. Google Alerts is free. Set one up for your brand or for products that you are associated with. Mention, Scoop It, BuzzSumo, Sprout Social, Social Animal, and Octopost are all quite good. They range from a few tens of dollars per month to a few $100s per month, and they can scale up from there. Most of them do B2C quite well. Octopost is very good for B2B, but check them out and see which ones work to meet your specific needs. Some of them are going to be a little stronger in some geographies or some verticals. So it's very tough to say this is the best one for any particular business, but look to see how it, the types of customers that they serve that are like yours, and it will give you the right idea there. You can also look at search activity to measure customer intent. So what does your target customer search for? What are their keywords? The questions that they're asking help you understand your target's intent. And the most important part is they're telling you what customers want. They actually tell you what they care about. So you can use Google Trends and Google Search Console to measure keyword volumes for your site or for very specific topics. Google Trends, you can see topics that people are searching around. You want to review keywords that have the highest click-through and have the highest use. And then you want to flesh out your content where gaps exist, where you see that people are searching for a term a lot, but you're not getting clicks or you're not showing up much. That's where you want to start to build out your content more effectively. There are also keyword tools like SEMrush, Ahrefs, Moz, the Google AdWords keyword tool, or Answer the Public. All can be effective ways of learning new keywords. Again, they start from a couple of tens of dollars per month, and a couple of these. Google AdWords keyword tool is free. You have to provide them a credit card to sign up, but you don't actually have to spend anything. It's just if you don't spend anything, they limit the number of keywords you can search on in a given period. Moz has a free tool. Ahrefs has a couple of free tools. SEMrush has a couple of free tools. Answer the Public has a couple of free tools. And then again, they go up from there from about a couple of tens of bucks per month to a few $100s per month. None of them get stupid expensive unless you're really scaling up to a large business. You can also look at your Google My Business page if you have a local business, if you have a business that has a physical location that people can come into, that you do want to set up a Google My Business page, and it will show you insights around local activity. Where are people searching? Where are people looking for you? What kind of information are they looking for? So it could be a valuable source of data. Facebook and LinkedIn both show demographic data and interest in content. So this is a real world scenario of a customer I've done work with. Shows you the company sizes of the people checking out your content, what industries they're in, what level they're in their job, and the kinds of people who've seen and shared the content. On Facebook, we see the same kinds of things. What are their ages? Are they men or women? What language do they speak? What country are they in? So these are all ways of seeing demographics about your customers and using that data to allow you to reach the customers you want to reach. The other thing that happens here is that most social sites and Google allow you to target advertisements by demographic data, behaviors, and especially interests and behaviors we want to focus on. There is a tool called retargeting where I can put a pixel, I can put a little tag on my website, you can put a little tag on your website and say, I only want to show ads to people who are in specific industries or on specific businesses or meet certain requirements who also have visited my website. That's called retargeting, and it allows us to say, how do we connect with people who've already shown some interest to bring them back and turn that into a sale? Now, what does it look like when you put this all together? It's really very straightforward. You start with targeted content. That targeted content gets you links and it gets you shares. Those links and shares will improve your search ranking. That will drive some traffic that will help you retarget and help you put ads in front of customers who express some interest, which will help you improve your conversion, which can help you increase your email list and drive more ratings and reviews, which helps you learn more about your customers so that you get ever more targeted content and improve the experience there. Now, if you don't have a website, I recommend either WordPress.com or Shopify.com. I think they're really useful tools. If you don't have an email list, there's a bunch of different ones you can look at. These are the ones I generally tell people to take a peek at, and they help you figure that out from there. And this isn't something we're going to spend any time on today, because I do want to fulfill my promise. We'll take a look at a couple of websites and we'll give some feedback on those. But this is something you can take a look at on your time to say, this is what we call an online maturity model, or digital marketing and e-commerce maturity model, and look at where you fall with regard to your customer, your strategy, technology, operations, culture, and data, and take a look at where you fall in each of these. If you find you fall in one column mostly, or this column mostly, you might have one here, you might have one here, but you're mostly here. This is the level you're at. And then you want to start to say, okay, what do I need to do to move into the next tier up? All right. All right. Any other questions before we take a look at a website or two?
All right, let's see. There's definitely a couple. Google Analytics, when you were talking about that, the question came in, does that track email marketing and those who visit your website after reading your email?
It does. You would want to use that in conjunction with your email marketing tool, but yes, it absolutely will show you if somebody clicked through from the email to a page on your website, you would absolutely see that traffic from your email marketing.
Okay.
It won't show you. It won't show you did they open the email or did they read the email. It will only show you if they came to the website from the email. Okay.
Gotcha. Use it as a source, just like any other type of source.
You got
Perfect.
it. You got it.
Is LinkedIn good to use if you are trying to target local businesses?
Yes, absolutely. What I might do, so there's a couple different things you can do there. So the answer is yes. First and foremost, absolutely yes. When you say local, how local?
I'd have to scroll back to find exactly. I think it said 15 within 15 minutes.
Okay. You can do it. You might find that there's only so many businesses in that who are also a good fit for what you offer. But yeah, you can absolutely do that. You would go in and you would say, I want to look at a specific geography. I don't know if it gets down to the city level, but you could certainly see the cities that they're in and then filter from there. But yes, you absolutely can do that.
And when you were going over some of the Google functionality, the question came in about if that was more for B2C focused than B2B.
With Google? No, definitely not. Everybody searches. It doesn't matter if they're searching for their business or they're searching for their own personal life. What they might search for will change, but the behaviors are exactly the same. So if I am well, let's pretend I'm a small business owner, like I am. If I'm looking to buy a new pair of shoes, I'm going to do a search for shoes of a certain type. If I'm looking to say, okay, how do I get a new telecom provider, or how do I get better internet access for my business, or where do I get business cards or flyers done? I'm going to search for those. So the terms I will search for will differ, but my behaviors are precisely the same. I can tell you almost unequivocally, we see no difference between B2B and B2C search behaviors, with a couple of very specific nuances. But generally speaking, you can assume that everyone searches.
Fantastic. And I'm going to give a quick plug for your previous watching a video or a recording of your previous video, because one of the questions here I recognize from having been content in our previous webinar about can you do all the Google My Business if you're doing work from home? And I recall you talking about how you create, not an address, but a service area and things like that.
You got it. That's exactly right, Margaret. So what you do, I have the very same situation. I don't have a physical location. So you don't create a Google My Business for your location. You do a Google My Business for the areas you serve, right? So you don't worry about putting in an address or things along those lines. And there is a link in the other webinar to the specific details of how you do that. And I have the very same situation myself. I don't have a physical address that people can walk into. I have the areas that I serve, and that's how my Google My Business is set up.
All right, great.
All right, should we check out a website?
Sure. The person who asked that question has put their website in the chat, and it is theyardcardexperts.com.
Theyardcardexperts.com. Okay, give me 1 second. I'm going to pull it up. And then I will. Okay, give me 1 second to share my screen. We'll take a look. So we're seeing the screen, right? And this is the website, correct?
I believe, yeah, yes,
Okay,
yes.
perfect. Okay, great. So first and foremost, the first thing we see is we get an interstitial. We get a little pop-up here that says, you know, looking for the ultimate graduation gift. This is great in that it's very focused and very targeted. The one thing I would suggest is I might, you can focus this to only come up. This takes a little bit of doing, but you can focus this that it only comes up when people have searched for graduation, so that anybody who's looking for things other than graduation goes straight to the site without getting the interstitial. But there's nothing wrong with that. That's very normal. I would just check and make sure that you're not seeing a high bounce rate there, or you're not seeing you're seeing good click-through rates. So this is good. First of all, you're showing the product. It's very clear what you do. I see that you got to subscribe now. This is good. They've got an email address. I might personally move the accept further down, because if I type in my email address here and I say tim@timpeter.com, I immediately want to go to the submit button. My eye is drawn directly here, and I'm going to click this, and I'm going to get an error almost all the time. That's not terrible. That's just something I might look to do to make that a little clearer, that has to be checked before I click the submit button. Pretty straightforward. I get what the product is. I get what the service is. This is good. This is good. This is good. I might flip. I love the testimonials. Testimonials are great. Great way to sell the business. You've got good photography and lots of it. I might move the testimonials up and move the about us down, right? Talk about what the customer cares about first, and then what you want to tell them second. But this is good. This is good content, good information. You've got the good calls to action, very clear everywhere about book my yard card. You might want to test making that a little bigger. Just the text is a little small to my eye. I'm a middle-aged guy, so I find it just a little small, but it's not bad at all. This is very solid. This is good information, good service areas that you talk about. Yeah, this is solid across the board. I would look at things like, okay, so we've got the phone number up here. That's good. Again, I might make that bigger. I didn't notice that until just now. And I assume that you get a lot of calls, you get a lot of orders via the phone. But those would be the things I would look at. Make the phone number a little bigger, make the book my yard card button or text on it a little bigger. Maybe move the I accept closer to the submit button, so I get that that's something I have to do, and maybe bring the testimonials up. But these are tweaks. These aren't, oh my gosh, this is a terrible website, burn it down and start over. Like, this is very solid. And these would be the things I would say I would test to see if you can make it just convert a little better from that perspective. But nice job there.
That's great. I didn't know what yard cards were, but as soon as I saw the pictures, I was like, oh, so that was great. We are about at our time to make a handoff back to the NJSBDC Cares team. So Tim, I want to thank you for a great job, and we have confirmed a couple of things for the audience. People who asked if the chat will be saved, the answer to that is yes. And there were way more submissions for the review of websites than we could have included today. But since that is all being saved, our Q&A and our chat, we'll sort out if Tim or another NJSBDC mentor will be able to help with reviews there. So Christian, thanks so much, and back to you.
Actually, can I answer one
Oh,
quick
sorry.
question? I
Sorry,
noticed
go ahead,
I saw
Tim.
one quick question that I saw that I can answer in 100 words or less. Someone asked, what about Facebook ads changes regarding iOS 14? Is it worth it now to run Facebook ads? You should certainly test them. They're going to get a little tougher for a time. I would say don't do them, but you definitely need to test and see how they're working for you. Okay.
Test is always a good answer.
Test is always a good answer. I mean, it's not the perfect answer, but the only way you're going to know is to test for yourself and see how it works. You should be able to get some decent results from it, but it's getting harder. We're going to see how this evolves over the coming year. All right. And now, Christian, back over to you.
Awesome. Great information. Tim, let me just go back to my screen here. So we basically answered most of the questions. So I'm not going to get into that here, but if we couldn't get to your question, guys, please send us over an email, or again, you can always register for counseling, and we could help you out one-on-one. So for our next event, it's actually me. So we're gonna figure out how to use social media to generate customers. So you're using Facebook, you're using Instagram, probably to talk to family and friends, but how can we make some money from it, right? How can we drive revenue? So that's next week, same time, same place. And remember, we've helped 13,000 plus small businesses. I think just this last month, we have gotten over 4,000 small businesses register with us. So people need help, and we're here to provide it. We give you no-cost small business consulting, training and events at $0, exclusive resources. So please register over at njsbdc.com/request-counseling. So we're going to drop that again into the chat. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much, Tim and Margaret. Wonderful presentation. Had a lot of fun with it. So yeah, thank you. And we'll see everyone next week. Have a good one.
Bye now.
Bye.